Hi guys, welcome to another day of Find Your Superpower, Hack Your Body and Mind to Become Unstoppable. Audrey Meyer here. I'm with Gary Ward. Hi Gary, how are you doing?
Hi Audrey. Yeah, I'm doing great, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome. Looking
Great.
forward to it.
Great. Thank you guys for being here today again. You know, this is a mission. I've been looking for peak performance for the last 15 years as a professional athlete and also as a coach. So thank you guys for being here with us, learning from all the speakers. Today, I'm really excited because Gary will be talking about waking your body up. So Gary, before we go into the question and we're going deep into the details, can you tell us a little bit about who is Gary Ward and why you talking about body and waking it up?
Okay, yeah, sure, absolutely. I began life as a ski boot fitter, and I was introduced to feet very well immediately because we used to look after feet in ski boots and build orthotics, and I instantly became fascinated with anatomy. And wanted a quick way in to work with anatomy, became a personal trainer. And the more I studied to become a good personal trainer, the more I realized that there was very little information about the feet. And when I put the foot and the body together, I would notice that things were a little bit different to what I was being taught. So my curiosity was piqued very quickly. And the long and the short of the story is really that I say we because we're we now, but I wasn't I became kind of obsessed with how the body moves, and noticed relationships between the foot and if the foot did a certain movement, then it would mean that there would be a movement that corresponded at the ankle, and then another one at the hip, and then the knee, and then the hip, and then all of a sudden you could see how the foot would speak to the spine. And I was like, well, we have 2 feet and we only have 1 spine. What if both feet are doing something differently? Then that would have a knock-on effect to the spine. So a lot of the work at the time was about doing core work and aligning your spine, but the neglected part was your feet. So if you've got one foot that's a little bit more flatter than the other, then the question that I had in my mind was, does your spine actually have that chance to be upright and stable, or are you just going to see a kind of kink through the whole chain? So I think I can honestly say right now that years later that answer has been answered. That question has been answered because it's super important, and the impact that you can have on your whole body by realigning your feet or having your feet work more equally is probably a more accurate thing to say. But just to get the best out of your feet, that if each got 33 joints in, 26 bones, and to understand the movement fully and deeply, it gives us a real opportunity to set our human body free. And it became the wake your body up idea came because we just started seeing, as you put movements back into people's bodies, you would essentially see it come back to life or wake up from a dormant sleep. And we'd be working with people who'd had problems for a long time, and they'd be going through conventional processes, but we would do something different, and that would be to just reteach these structures to move the way they were supposed to move, based on the joint shapes that we observe. And then all of a sudden people's muscles that they've been trying to activate arduously over months would just come back to life immediately, as though they woke up. Now, we're under no illusion that they never fall asleep. They're always working, but you know, I think for the general person, they get an idea that, especially if they've been told that they've got sleepy glutes, which seemed like a comment, certainly a long time, 10 years ago, this is what a lot of people were being told. And so we were able to wake them up quite emphatically, quickly, and with great success.
I love that. And I love how you talked about how you started your mission or your passion with ski boots. I used to be a racer skiing when I lived in France, and I remember how they would like mold your ski boots to your foot, you know. So as a teenager, I was like, this is painful. Well, not painful, but this is waste of time. And then while training, we would realize how much we would become better and faster, and would have less pain on the hip and on the knee for different reasons. So wow, that's just so fascinating.
Well, what really piqued my interest was the changes that you could make in someone's foot in a ski boot would result in one of two outcomes. One was that they would report the best days skiing ever, so their performance. And the other one would be that they would come back, which was always a surprise to me, to say that they didn't have this pain today when they were skiing. And it wasn't always at the foot, it was their knee hurt less, their back hurt less, their neck hurt. And that's what piqued my interest. That was what, how can I make a change in the foot and someone's neck get better? Yeah. And that's been the journey to understand it ever since, really. And just to complete the first question on the back of that, I then, in order to understand these exchanges, I set about documenting the journey of every bone through a walking footstep. And that's what we today call our flow motion model. And the model is basically a description of every joint through 12 phases of a walking cycle. So from when the heel hits the ground to when the heel hits the ground again, we can describe what your pelvis should be doing at what moment in that process, and what the spine above it is doing and what the hip below it is doing, and start to see these evolving whole body movement patterns come to life. And those patterns are actually patterns that we all hold in our posture. So if we're dominant on one leg and not on the other leg, you'll see that we start to adopt the body patterns required to be on one leg. And so rather than, if that creates back pain, so if you are compressing your left low back because by virtue of putting all your weight on your left foot, stretching that left side out is no good unless you teach and educate the body to put its weight on the right foot and experience the opposite pattern equally on the opposite side. And so it's for me, it's been an absolutely fascinating process, and I love teaching it. I love getting people to experience it, and I love the feedback that our therapists get when they also have that opportunity to pass that on to their patients as well.
Yeah, and I can see how fascinated it can be. And I know, Gary, you believe that there's a big difference between getting someone fixed by someone and helping that person to heal him or herself, right? So that's where comes this fascination of the foot. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I talk about if I could, I would enable everybody to recognize that you cannot hand your body over to somebody else and expect them to fix it. That's a huge amount of pressure that you're placing on the therapist. And for a therapist to have that expectation of however many clients a week that they are responsible for fixing them or to be fixed. I find that quite a very difficult relationship for two people to have, like the expectation that you'll fix me and then the need for me to fix you. But on one of my first websites, I simply wrote that if you cut your finger, you can watch it heal. And the only way it will not heal is if you keep running the blade over the cut. And then to expand that out into our human body is like, what you've done is you can watch that you personally have the capacity to heal. If you have pain and discomfort in your body, so we talked about that back pain thing. If I have a compressive force going through my back that is causing me pain, as long as I leave that compressive force there, the pain has the potential to remain. But as soon as if we were able to create an environment where what I mentioned previously was that I got my weight on my left leg and I start to get my weight on my right leg, that is the thing as a global entity that will start to reduce the compression in that part of my back. Stretching it, at taking a foam roller to it or doing some strengthening exercises on the weak side will actually have very little impact if the result of that work is that you remain keeping the body weight heavily on your left side. And if the reason you keep the body weight on your left side is because you had an ankle injury on the right side a long time ago, and you learned behaviorally a long time ago to keep your weight on the left leg, then all of a sudden you realize that what we're treating is the wrong part of your anatomy. We need to go back to heal that ankle. And I realize I just said heal that ankle. What we need to go back to is understand the ankle, understand the mechanics, understand the impact of the injury, and start to re-educate that right foot to work well. so that when it hits the ground, it articulates in a different way to how it did before, which impacts the knee differently, which impacts the hip differently, which enables me to have confidence to bear weight on it and take the pressure off the left side, and then the back will open. And then as soon as that back opens and I take the knife off the cut, i.e. take the compression out of the back, then the body has all the tools it needs to send all the resources it needs to heal there. So the idea of movement is that we start to look for the structural things that we are not doing, that we are not able to do, that we've forgotten to do, and invite people to explore those and put them back through movement. And so they're obviously moving themselves. We can guide them, we can shine a light on the things that they need to do, but people can stand in their own living room and move their body differently to create an environment for change that will induce the healing. So there's still a role, there's still a therapist-patient role, of course. But I think in this environment, it takes the pressure off the therapist. The therapist can just look to see if somebody's, if they always hold their head to the right, what can we do? Why do they hold their head to the right? Can we get them to head it to the left? If they do turn their head to the left, what does that mean for the spine? What's it mean for the pelvis? Blah, blah, blah. So I keep running there's this journey from head to toe, from toe to head and back again. And everything is in play all the time. And if it's one area of your body that's sore, everything is still in play at one time. So we like to say and think you don't really have a back problem, you have a whole body problem. You don't have a foot problem, you have a whole body problem. And so it's lovely because it's a holistic approach to working with the body.
Yeah, this is so interesting because while you're talking, I'm standing here and I had ACL reconstruction on my right knee, and I make sure that I stand both ways on the same feet. I'm like, okay, stand both ways.
It's very interesting because one of the keys to this is self-awareness. So first, when you have the conversation like this, you may or may not have known that already, but for many people, they'll suddenly go, oh, actually, I damaged that ACL and I do hold my weight more on the left. Some people hold more weight in the bad leg, right? And some people choose to hold it in their good leg. We can't make those decisions. That's like a taking ownership thing. You've made those decisions for yourself. So becoming aware of that is one of the first steps to taking ownership of it. But you will then go into a place, I think this kind of the Western way of thinking about this is now that we're going to try hard to put our weight in our other leg. But of course, to put your weight and be confident of putting your weight in that leg is really to say, what mechanically is the knee able to do that it could be able to do? Sorry. So how does your knee hold its posture? How does your knee move? How does your knee communicate down to the foot? Does movement at the pelvis actually pass through the knee to reach to the foot? Or is the foot like a dead fish on the end, or is it actually got vibrant life? And to be able to recognize that there are movement patterns. There are actually only 4 ways that we can move our knee. Is that there's a lot of argument, there's a lot of discussion, and there's a lot of confusion when we start teaching the knee. And I think partly because some of the information that we've got is not very accurate. But how can information about something that moves so little, it moves in 4 directions, it will bend and straighten, and it will rotate internally and externally, and then the ACL is obviously managing one of those directions. And it has a beautiful relationship with the foot, and we can easily re-inspire our knees to work in relationship with their feet again.
So I like what you mentioned, the word awareness, because Gary, you're one of the we only have 2 speakers on the show about talking about body and mobility. You, Gary, and Rocky, which you know as well.
Oh, I know Rocky.
And,
yeah.
All the other speakers, we talk about brain, we talk about breathing, but everyone talks about awareness. So I really want to put that out, awareness, mind awareness, self-awareness. This is, I think, the first step, right?
Definitely.
Of being aware of how you think, how you breathe, how you move, how you stand, everything. So I love that you use that word, self-awareness.
So we will use self-assessment as a way of becoming self-aware. So the programs that we offer are guiding people to educate themselves. So education is also part of self-awareness, and the education part is for a non-therapist even, is how exactly could and I move my body, how should I move my body, and then compare it to how I do move my body, and it will start to shed light. So some people can rotate left quite easily, but they struggle to rotate right with their spine, or they struggle to look left, side bend the head left, side bend it to the right, and you start to create these comparisons, and you should be able to make a grid if you're guided properly. And part of the guided properly part is it's very easy to cheat in a self-assessment until you really understand what it is that you're trying to achieve in your movement. So you know, and when we're teaching therapists around the world, and part of the initial processes is to get people to self-assess themselves and actually to point out how they are cheating their movement. So these are established movement people will still be moving around their problems, the problems that they've generated through their own life that they haven't yet taken ownership for, because they weren't aware that they were rippling through their system. And so it's quite frustrating, I think, for them, but quite fun for us to be able to point out, that actually, if you say to somebody, can you rotate your spine to the right, they'll do it. And then you'll see all the ways they're making it happen. If you block some of those ways off, they'll go, oh, I actually can't. I didn't realize that. So self-awareness is not just about standing in a room and checking what you can and can't do, but it's also about what the limitations are to any movement. Because movement, I think we think movement is bigger than it is. Movement is really, really small. A rotation to the right is a small amount of rotation. It's not a big crazy thing. If you've got a big amount of rotation, you're using a lot of parts of your body to do it. If you just use the appropriate pieces, you'll find that movement is very, very small. And so the work that we do is very slow, very specific, rather than quick and fast. So when you're training, there's a good chance that if you do not know, if your body parts, if there are parts of your body that don't move very well when you're training, you're not going to improve them. So the bigger and quicker or stronger or more effortful the movement that you're undertaking, the less chance of actually exposing the real movement. So in order to expose the real movement, you have to go really, really slow and quiet, understand it, become aware of it, and then put it back. We talk about what's missing. So when you actually truly realize that what you're missing is a right rotation in that last conversation versus, oh, my rotation's fine both directions, then you really have a place to start to work.
Yeah. Gary, I know your passion is to educate people. So, and I know on your website you have some online program, and you've been talking about program earlier. So the audience is here, everyone is listening, and they're like, I wanna know more. I
want to take ownership of my body.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what you have online. I've been going through your website; it's really amazing, and I'm super interested as a personal trainer, and I definitely want to do some work, learn more from you. And so tell us a little more about that.
Okay, so thank you for that opportunity. We have a couple of programs which are called Wake Your Body, Wake Your Body Up, and one is Wake Your Body Up, but it's basically a focus on your upper body, but also in relation to your foot pressures, which is what we talked about, becoming aware of if you're it's more than are you stood on your right leg, your left leg, but do you feel weight in your forefeet, your heels, your left foot, the right foot, inside, outside, and then an educational bit that helps you understand how that is affecting your posture, or how you can read your posture from those foot pressures, and then to look at your posture, and you'll be looking at every section, then your pelvis, your rib cage, your skull, in the 3 dimensions. So you'll assess it in one dimension, the second dimension, the third dimension, and start to document your body. So it gives you this real opportunity to understand where it's at, how it's resting in space, and how that's carried onto your foot pressures. And then the next part is to start moving. So the movements I talked about, where we'll put in place the limitations so that you purely get to assess the movement that we're asking you to. And then again, you can tick and cross. Yep, I can do that. No, I can't do that. That one's painful. I have no idea how to do that one at all. And And for many people, those who haven't experienced a right rotation before, the very first time they actually do a real right rotation is the first time they communicate that to the brain, and you've already begun that opportunity of experiencing that movement to take pressure off other areas. So that's Wake Your Body Up. And both of the programs will integrate. So once you've found that you can't rotate your rib cage to the right, your pelvis to the left, there'll be a combination of putting those movements in together in an integrated whole body movement, so your brain gets to experience the whole shebang, if you like. And the second part, which we released just at the start of the global quarantine, is called Wake Your Feet Up. And that is, well, exactly what it says on the tin, I suppose, where we're now going to take people through an educational exploration of their actual feet. And I said the knee only has a couple of ways to move. The foot only has two ways to move. One's called a pronation, one's called a supination. I think they're probably the most misunderstood words in our industry across the board. And so to be able to help people not only understand what that is, what a flat foot is, what a high arch is, but to understand that there's a three-dimensional thing to that, that there's 26 bones that we can actually influence ourselves without visiting a therapist. And we'll use these you'll see on the program, there are these wedges, which if you put the wedge in the right place, it will help a bone move in the right direction. And that will help you move your ankle, help you move your knee, put some movement patterns in for that place, and then speak to the pelvis. And now you're into the Wake Your Body Up space. So they're two programs. I like to think that they're not very expensive. They're around £14 UK sterling, so $20, less than the price of a physiotherapy course, and they should last you forever unless you're going to grow a third arm or a second rib cage. Yeah. And so the idea is that you revisit them again and again and again, so that you can, what we call, check in with your body in a way where you have taken ownership of it. You recognize that 2 months ago I couldn't put weight on my right leg and I couldn't flex my spine. Now I can put weight on my right leg, I can flex my spine, and I don't have this problem anymore. And some people will get good benefits really, really quickly. Some people will unfortunately need to engage in the process. So one of our instructions is also that you need to allocate time to any process like this as well. And I'm happy to say that I've been working with my own body now for years and years and years and years. And I could honestly say that I've having been through my athletic days, I wish that I had the awareness now that I have in my body. But before, when I was an athlete, because it wouldn't have hurt so much, I don't think, and I'd probably been more successful.
I
yeah.
in the same way.
But it's as you know, as a skier or a footballer, a soccer player, you go through your injuries. And so I've spent years marveling at my injuries and the impact that they've had on my body, and how I've had to move around my problems, and the journey of undoing them, and the joy of what's on the other side has been a phenomenal experience. And it's not just that I want to give people that opportunity, but I think anatomy is a very complex thing and it's probably why we always go to someone else to fix us, because they know, they've been taught, and we'll give our body to them to help us. But where some of the advice has got a bit lost along the way, and actually it's a very powerful experience to take that on yourself. And in its complexity, and I like to think that we've done this very well, it's a very simple process of simply, can I go left, can I go right, can I bend forward, can I bend backwards, in certain confines that enable us to actually explore our body in a way that, hand on heart, you probably never have before. And certainly to step away from the global idea that we just need to strengthen our feet and walk barefoot to make them strong, but actually no, we need to teach our 26 bones how to move in certain combinations and orientations that will set our body free. And I do, sounds complex, 26 bones, 33 joints, but I like to say, look, there's only needs to do these two movements. So you're going to put these wedges on the floor, you're going to put your foot in this position, you're going to bend your knee, and the rest is history, really. So the programs, again, thank you for giving me the little platform there, but the programs are literally around helping people not just non-therapists, but therapists as well enjoy them, so that they can, as I say, take ownership of the body. That's the line. Is that you've got a chance. You have a real chance of getting to know it a lot better, and you've put it through a lot. So let's give it some love back. Right?
Yeah, and I can totally justify as a professional athlete. I used to compete on the World Cup. You know, you build yourself up, but here I'm also talking just for anybody. I mean, this is a prevention, right, Gary? You don't need to be sick or to be hurt, to be injured, to have pain. I mean, I'm 42. If for 42 years I'm walking, putting too much weight on one foot, I mean, eventually I will have pain in my back or somewhere in my hips. So it's good. It's just a good tool what you offer. Right. That's amazing.
None of us are getting younger, so this is really time to. And I think there may be a time where people go, "Oh, I'll look after my body now. It's done its bit. It's helped me enjoy myself." Yeah. But you know, that enjoyment can go on a lot longer. We don't need to retire so soon. It's a real opportunity. That's what we're hoping to give people. But pain is a real thing. A lot of people suffer from chronic pain, and sometimes wonder if chronic pain is just looking in the wrong place, doing the wrong thing. But obviously there's a huge science to the world of pain, and we should respect that and acknowledge that. But if we come back to the simplicity of how does your body move, I don't think I've ever come across a problem that doesn't have a structural element involved. And so that's the side that we would like to educate people on. Yeah.
Great. You talked about chronic pain, and I know because I watched your video in 2016. You have Dr. So let me try to pronounce his name right. Rangan Chatterjee.
Rangan Chatterjee. Very close. Yeah.
Thank you. And I follow him on Instagram. He's a great doctor, and he came and visited you in 2016 with a friend, and who had chronic pain, right? And you fixed him, and then he wrote about you in his book. So we still have a little time. I know it's going fast, but can you, Gary, just tell us a little bit about this story, because you changed this guy's life.
So this clip can be seen on my website. If you wanted to share that on the whatever it is that you share with the show. The guy's name was Ray, and he was addicted to painkillers, but very, very serious painkillers, and also to weightlifting, to the point where he'd set up his life around this. He owned a gym and was very active in helping people, educate and train, and just, proper weightlifting and bodybuilding we're talking. But that, again, it was one of those things that only when I'm bodybuilding do I have no pain, and it was back pain. It was part of the show called Doctor in the House that Dr. Rangan did 2 series of, and so we did the pilot, and we helped another guy that nobody got to see that one, and then thankfully they rang me up again to say, can I come and help with this guy? But it's a long time since I've talked about this, so pardon the stuttering, but it was a classic example of everything that we've kind of talked about today. Is this guy's back pain had absolutely nothing to do with his back. But of course, that was the only thing that was being treated. And it was through the assessment process of conversation where I was asking him his injury history, and he'd broken his wrist, and he'd broken the metatarsals in his foot. He'd had a couple of concussions, but none of it was tying up cleanly enough for me to say, okay, well, let's work on those places. And the reason is because he had the pain since he was, I think, 15 years old, and everything that he told me in his injury history had happened after the age of 15 years old. So he had his back pain through all the injuries. That's what didn't make sense to me. So I said, what happened? What was serious? What happened before the age of 15? And he said, nothing serious. And I said, what's not serious? And he shook his head and he said, oh, just a couple of lads jumped me and shattered my jaw. So so that was the thing that, and when was that? And it was like 15 months before the onset of his back pain. So we basically had a look at the jaw. We did some work on the jaw, and you can see in the video how the guy's spine straightens up just from doing work on the jaw. And I've always said it was too good for TV because it was like you watched it unfold on the show, and Rongan's eyes popping out of his head. But it was, we got to it, and we got to it very, very quickly. And as soon as we got to it, and we were able to teach him to move his jaw, and then integrate integrate head to toe these movements, he had a phenomenal response. And you can see the way he walked before, and you can watch the way he walked after, all inside an hour's session. And so yeah, it was a wonderful experience, and it was filmed, and it went on the telly. So yeah, I worked with Dr. Rongan. He came on our course long before his fame and TV shows, and he had also got back pain. And I remember working with his foot in the on the course, and he said after working with the foot on his course, his back pain had gone away as well. So so we had a foot that was creating back pain, we had a jaw that was creating back pain, and that's where his books are wonderful. They're not just about human movement, they're about all the 4 pillars of life for him: movement and diet and exercise, thought. If you follow him, if you do follow, I urge you to follow him, because he's a wonderful doctor and he's doing wonderful things in the world. I mean, some of his TV shows was people were coming off, their diabetes was being turned around. So he's doing the right thing as well. And I think in all those cases, it's about finding the cause, underlying problems, and setting to work on those rather than treating the symptom.
Yeah, love it. Gary, time is flying. We still have like a couple of minutes.
Okay.
And can you please tell us about your gift, because you have a gift for the audience?
So the gift that I have put together covers in a little more depth what we've been talking around anyway. So it's about the 7 things that you can begin to do in order to take ownership of your own body.
Love it. That's so generous. Love it. So thank you so much, guys. All the information will be underneath the interview from Gary and me. So go on Gary's website. Gary, remind us your website name.
The website is Finding Centre, spelled the English way. So Finding Centre, CENTRE.co.uk.
Good. And it will also be underneath the interview. So guys, check it out. Gary makes some life difference, heal people, make them find their superpower, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, Gary, thank you so much. This was so interesting. Keep doing a great job. Keep sharing this awareness, and we need more people like you out there. So thank you. Thank you so
keep
much.
trying to train more of me.
Yeah, you'll hear from me. I'll get in touch. I'm gonna come and visit you. I wanna learn from you. So thank you so much. Guys, thanks for joining us. I will see you tomorrow with another interview. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.